I was at the Smart Blonde press conference. Peter Flynn, the director, introduced the musical numbers and the scenes that we saw. It's All for Art's Sake with them as the reviewers. Then there were some scenes with Born Yesterday and the various people involved. And then a breakup scene with her husband where she goes into singing What'll I Do. And then I interviewed with Peter Flynn, Andrea Burns, Mark Lotito, Andrea Bianchi, Jonathan Spivy, and Willy Holtzman.
Smart Blonde is about the film and theater star Judy Holliday. It starts in a very true historic moment in her life. Right about 6 months before she passed, she went into a recording studio and she recorded the one album only that was all her lyrics, written to music by Jerry Mulligan, the world-class saxophone and jazz musician. And the two of them were seeing each other at the time, and he said, why don't we write together? And so our show launches in that wonderful moment when she goes in to record. In our show, she has trouble finding her voice. And so in an effort to relax her, one of her best friends, Bernie, who is her musical director, walks her through some of the most prominent and memorable moments of her life. And we get to see that as well. And so all of a sudden, the personnel of the recording studio, her musical director, the music copyist, the sound engineer, take on different persona from the rest of her life. Adolph, Betty Comden, Marilyn Monroe, Garson, Kanin, Ruth Gordon, and help to restore her to her fullest self. So it's a really fun exploration of a woman who had lots of accomplishment, but what is lesser known about her is for every major accomplishment she had in her life, she had a major downfall. She was blacklisted. She was actually put upon by Daryl Zanuck. She was one of the first women, way before Me Too, who said no to a Hollywood executive, and because of that was thrown out of Hollywood. And then right at the peak of her second career, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and then died very quickly after that. So every time this major woman, who was arguably the smartest woman in the room, she had an IQ of 172, creating a dumb blonde, right? It's one of the wonderful ironies about her. Every time she reached a moment of major triumph, life handed her a downfall and a consequence. And our story explores that tenacity and that perseverance and that heart that was able to create humor as well as empowerment for herself throughout her life. So that's basically where we are with Smart Blonde. We're going to show you 3 moments from this show. The first one is very young. She started in a group called the Reviewers at the Village Vanguard down in the village, naturally. And she was part of a lesser-known troupe called the Reviewers with 3 very unknowns at the time. Adolph, Betty Comden, and a little unknown musician named Leonard Bernstein. And they wrote comedy sketches together. So one of the first things we do in our show is you get to see the Reviewers in action. Because they were so popular downtown, they got cast in a movie in Hollywood called, a far stretch from them, it was called Greenwich Village, starring Don Amici and Carmen Miranda, and they were brought in to do their act in the movie. So what you're going to see is a number that was written exclusively for them for the movie. In our show, it shows their progression from New York to Hollywood, a moment that she faced of reckoning, her first hurdle with a press agent, and then it shows the number in full gear in the show, in the movie called Greenwich Village. So the first thing you'll see is, it's all for art's sake. The 20th Century Limited to Hollywood. It's all for art's sake, remember this. What money we make, we only make for art's sake. We're doing all right tonight, so have a great ball. Tomorrow we'll all be back behind the 8 ball. It's all for art's sake, and we are here. We have to have the atmosphere. Whatever the way we act is due to the simple fact that whatever we do, we only do for art's sake. Hey, sweetheart, Jack Gold, Fox Publicity Department.
How do you do?
Here's a list of names. Pick one.
I've got a name.
Judy Tubin, too Jewish.
How Jewish?
That's what you think.
Well, Tuvim is the Jewish word for holiday. How about holiday?
I like it. Do you spell it with one M or 2?
Vice is rolling!
It's all for art's sake, it really is. We suffer a lot, an awful lot for art's sake.
Come in and see the latest in apparel. When God is buried, nothing but a carol.
It's all for art's sake, the just saw, as history would go, was completely cut. And the only thing that was left from Greenwich Village was Betty Comden saying, "Here's your hat." I think to William Bendix. Interestingly enough, though, Judy got kept as a day player, and Adolph and Betty went back to New York, a little bit of history, to write their first show on the town. Judy, as I said, had a meeting with Daryl Zanuck. His legendary 4 o'clock meeting was to make a starlet into a star. And he put the moves on her, and she said no, and he threw her out of Hollywood. And she went back to New York with absolutely no work. A call came to her mother's apartment where she was staying from Garson Kanin saying, "Can you come meet me at the Warwick Hotel in Philadelphia? I have a problem with a new play, and I'd like to see if you can help me." And so she goes down to the Warwick Hotel in Philadelphia to meet Garson Kanin and his wife Ruth Gordon, both of whom wrote this play. So what you're going to see now is that meeting with Garson and Ruth, and then what occurs from that after that, which is when she starts opening night of Born Yesterday, playing Billy Dawn. So here we are visiting the Garson, Kanin, Ruth Gordon family in the Warwick Hotel.
It's a great honor to meet you, Mr. Kanin, Miss Gordon.
Do you care for a pastrami sandwich? I lost my appetite around the time we lost our leading lady.
Garson is being right, which is to say ironic, not the stale stuff on either side of the pastrami. We didn't lose our leading lady. She got stage fright. Did you know I played one of the lost boys in Peter Pan? Times critic said I was ever so gay.
If we might talk for a moment about Born Yesterday.
It's brilliant. Sorry to interrupt. Go on. I do it all the time. It's not just hilarious. It's political, but not polemical. And I love the way you reveal that the smartest person in the room is ultimately the one you least expected to be.
What are your thoughts on your character, Miss Holliday?
Well, I think I've got this straight. Billy Dawn is the inamorata of a junkyard baron who's in Washington to buy political influence, but it's a bit of a twist on Pygmalion and Galatea, isn't it? Although more the George Bernard Shaw vein, the creation recreates the creator. Takes a very smart lady to play dumb.
Did you have a chance to look at the Act 1 gin scene?
You might need that, dear. Oh, I read the scene on the train ride down.
You're saying you're off book?
Pretty much.
Enter. Pour yourself a scotch and soda. Oh, that's good. Sachet.
Billy was in the chorus, so if anything goes.
Now, cross to the card table. Now, deal. Moving your lips with each card, like a kindergartner counting sugar cookies.
Good.
It's shipped, and we're at opening night of Born Yesterday.
You're in the big league now. You should watch your step.
All right.
You gotta learn to fit in. If not, I can't have you hanging around, and that's no bull. You gotta be careful what you do and what you say. '28.
28?
28.
the movie and wins the Oscar for it. Within months of winning the Oscar, she is put on the blacklist and has to appear in secret subcommittee meeting with the top-ranking senator and his lawyer at the time. They keep her testimony secret. She is asked about all of her contacts: Adolph, Betty, her mother, her uncle, who is a socialist writer for the Daily Worker. And about 10 months later, just as she gives birth to her son Jonathan, the secret testimony is released to the press. And she loses her management. She loses a guest spot on Bob Hope. Pepsodent drops her as a sponsor. And so she has to work her way back up. At that time, her husband, David Oppenheimer, who was also a world-class classical musician and running the classical division of Columbia Records, and she had a son, Jonathan. And so what we'd like to show you is the very last part of her relationship with David and how this moment in her history, not only losing her career but losing her identity to the blacklist, affected her life. So this is one of the latter scenes in our show that takes place between her husband David. She's just come back from shooting It Should Happen to You with an unknown named Jack Lemmon, shot by George Cukor, and she's returning to New York having just shot that movie, and this is the scene that takes place.
Judy Holliday has been the constant companion of newcomer.
You don't really believe that trash, do you, David?
I don't know what to believe. It's 2 months since I saw you.
I was in Hollywood getting my career back on track.
What about my career? You think you didn't drag me onto the blacklist with you?
You're practically running Columbia Records.
The classical division. And right now, I don't see much future in being Mr. Judy Holliday, especially if you
I'm
see
not
Jack.
having an affair.
Well, I am.
Who is it?
Doesn't matter.
I figure my husband is screwing another woman. I should know who. You owe me that.
Spare me the sanctimony.
Okay, okay. People make mistakes. It's not the end of the world. We can still make it work.
It's not me. Me here, you out there.
And I'll tell Harry I want to shoot the next film entirely in New York. An Oscar has to count for something.
I got you blacklisted.
Then I'll do a play. We'll move back to the village. It'll be like old times.
Judy, listen to me. This mistake, as you call it, wasn't a mistake.
You love this woman?
Come back for my things later.
You can't just
It's
walk
over,
out.
Judy.
We have a son.
And he'll still have both of us in his life. Just not together.
David, I didn't have an affair with Jack Lemmon. It was with Peter Lawford.
Goodbye, Judy.
What is the romance that was so divine? 'Tis broken and cannot be mended. You must go your way, and I must go mine. But now that our love dreams have ended, what'll I do when you are far away and I am blue? What'll I do? What'll I do? Life's wandering away, kissing you. What'll I do? What'll I do with just a photograph to tell my troubles true? When I'm alone with only dreams of you, that won't come true. What'll I do?
Here we are with.
Peter Flynn, the director of Smart Blonde.
How did
you find this project? I love Judy Holliday so much.
I do as well. The project found me. It was commissioned by a regional theater in Pittsburgh, the City Theater, and Tracy Brigden, who's a dear friend of mine, was artistic director. And she said, I have a play that I think you want to take a look at about Judy Holliday and the moments in her life that brought her fame and brought her deep challenges and disappointment. And so I started working with Willy Holtzman, the playwright, and we did a reading and then a workshop, and then we actually did a production at City Theater, and it went great. And from there, Mary Davis, our producer, got wind of it and said we should take it to New York.
I wonder what it is about Pittsburgh that they were fascinated by Judy Holliday.
Well, I have to say that I think it started with the fascination with Willy Holtzman. He was a playwright with whom City Theater had worked before and really liked the way he had written a play called the Marini Strad about the Stradivarius, a very famous Stradivarius violin, and they said, what is next for you? And he said, I've always wanted to write this play about Judy Holliday. He was as big a fan as we are of her, and so they said, take a crack at it. And then that town became obsessed with Judy Holliday. We had talkbacks almost after every performance because people were fascinated because so much of what's in the play, most people don't know about her. They know Bells Are Ringing, they know Born Yesterday. They don't know that she was brought in front of the House Un-American Activities Committee. So it's been a really great journey to let audiences find out more about this very famous, very funny star of stage and screen.
And that she was really smart in real life, too.
Remarkably smart. She was arguably the smartest person in the room. She had an IQ of 172. And so everybody really had to sort of make room for that big brain of hers, you know. And that's, I think, part of the challenge she found, is that she created this really funny character based on a dumb blonde, very vapid and very unknowing. And yet behind that platinum blonde was somebody who knew exactly what she was doing every step of the way.
She sort of like Lucille Ball.
Very much so.
And Lucille Ball also had trouble with the Un-American Activities, too.
Yes, exactly. A lot of, you know, that's what we are hoping this play brings to light, is that there were so many smart, capable, empowered women in Hollywood that really never got their due because of the studio system, because of the patriarchy that was running Hollywood at the time, that there were so many people that would have been seen more and heard from more had there not been this bias against women being as strong and as capable and as smart as they are.
And the fact that she actually stood up and said no to the studio head instead of taking the easy route and say, you know, she was like the forerunner of Me Too.
Absolutely. Way before Me Too. She was brought to meet the producer Daryl Zanuck over at Fox, and he put the moves on her, and she said no, and he threw her out of Hollywood after her very first movie. And so she had a long road back to making the movie of Born Yesterday.
And yet, you know, we see so many movies that she made that we don't realize there was dry spells in between, because it seemed like she was in movies all the time.
Oh, absolutely. There was a long dry spell. She made Born Yesterday, and then she made a movie called The Marrying Kind, which actually was going...
Aldo Ray.
That's exactly right, Aldo Ray. That was going to launch the second part of her career, not as a dumb blonde, but as an actual actress. And right after that, she was brought in front of the House Un-American Activities Committee and wasn't picked up anymore. And it took Harry Cohen at Columbia Pictures to buy her name off the blacklist. And then he relegated her to one dumb blonde movie after another. It Should Have Been You, got Solid Gold Cadillac, you know, with Kim Novak.
And when was Adam's Rib?
Adam's Rib was the first movie that Garson, Kanin, and Ruth Gordon wrote for her, and it was how they wanted. It's how they wanted George Cukor to fall in love with her, because Harry Cohen at Columbia, who made Born Yesterday, was not convinced it should be Judy for the movie of Born Yesterday. He wanted Rita Hayworth, he wanted Barbara Stanwyck, he wanted Lucille Ball. And Garson kept saying, I think it should be Judy. He said, absolutely not. And so they wrote Adam's Rib with this part just for Judy, so that it would be sort of a backdoor audition. And George fell in love with her, and Harry said, okay, we'll give her a shot. And she won the Academy Award for Born Yesterday.
And you can't imagine anyone else in that part. I mean, Madeline Kahn did on Broadway, but Nina, I can't remember her name now, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's her part.
It is. And so many archetypal dumb blondes after that. Jean Hagen as Lena Lamont in Singing in the Rain is based on Judy Holliday's first character. And there were so many others that came after that because of how she created the role originally.
Well, I'm so excited about this. I can't wait to see it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
Here we are with
Andrea Burns.
Oh, you get such a juicy part. You must love Judy Holliday. I mean, of all the real people to portray, she is so juicy.
She is so juicy. Big shoes to fill for sure. But she lived an incredible life, and she was an incredible person. And so many of us love her, knowing her work, but a lot of us don't even know so much about the incredible life she lived and a lot of the obstacles she had to overcome. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with the world.
I know. I mean, it shows what a great actress she was, because you had no idea that all this turmoil was going on in her real life, because she's so sunny and funny and wonderful.
Right. Well, that's what actors do, right? Smile though your heart is breaking. That's what we do. But of course, she was so famous for being like the dumbest blonde ever. And I think genius IQ starts at 130 or 135, and she had a 172 IQ. So you can imagine what kind of genius she was. Well, we saw it. We saw the genius come out in her comedy, didn't we?
I wonder, was it ever grating to her that she had to play this dumb blonde when she knew she wasn't?
Yes. I think it's something that she created that she was proud of, but then certainly being trapped in that was hard for her. I think she wanted to move on to do roles that were a little bit more full-bodied and acting roles that were more challenging, but due to a little trouble with McCarthyism, that became a problem. She had trouble getting cast, and when she was cast again, they just wanted her to do her special dumb blonde thing. So that was frustrating for her.
How did the House of Un-American Activity get Judy Holliday? I mean, she seems so like, why? I mean, you can't even think of her as a communist or socialist or anything.
Well, you have to remember at the time, they were trying to get everybody they could get. And as she was becoming a bigger star and a bigger star, she was a good target. She was somebody that they could catch. And it all happened for her after the moment she won the Oscar. So what should have been a triumphant moment in her life is really her downfall.
Could she ever enjoy any of her triumphs? Because like the director was saying, it seems like every time something good happened, something bad was right around the corner. It's so Jewish.
Yeah, well, that's true, isn't it? Isn't it? We're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. The shoe drops in this play. But I'm sure, I mean, there are certain moments of her life, of course, that were happy, and she was, I think, extremely proud of the work that she did and the things that she created. But she was up against a lot. She was a lot stronger than a lot of people knew.
I didn't know she had a kid. Is the kid still around? Did he have kids? I mean, are there Judy Holliday descendants running around?
Well, he is still alive. He's a cinematographer, in fact. Yes, and so our playwright is in touch with him, but he's respectfully sort of out of the circle. I can't really say any more about him, but that he's well, and I hope he has a very happy life. God bless him and keep him.
So what surprised you most when you were reading up on Judy Holliday?
I think the fact that she was actually from a family of Jewish socialist parents, and grew up sort of reciting the names of the original Politburo was a part of her upbringing. She came from a very strong Jewish intellectual upbringing, which you just wouldn't think when you see her doing that blonde Gentile kind of character.
I know, she's such a shiksa.
Yes, she is. She is.
Well, it looks fantastic. I'm real excited about this one. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I know you'll enjoy it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. We are with.
Hi, I'm Mark Lotito.
Hi, Andrea Bianchi.
Hey, I'm Jonathan Spivy.
And what parts are you all playing?
Well, that's not such an easy question to answer because we all play multiple parts. In the studio, I'm the sound engineer, but then I play two of the men that she married, Judy Holliday married in her life, and one of her close friends, Adolph Green, David Oppenheimer, her first husband, Jerry Mulligan, jazz saxophonist, who's her second husband. I play who do I play? I forget. Oh, the guy, Max Gordon, where she started at the Village Vanguard. He was the owner-producer there. I play her uncle, who helped raise her and tried to have a very strong influence on her education and political orientation. And who else? Oh, a judge, a senator in a black list hearing in the House Un-American Activities hearing
Keeping you busy.
Yeah, you know, we're all busy. You're all busy. Go on to the.
And your Ruth Gordon was so spot on. I love Ruth Gordon.
I do too. Yeah, I've been watching. Like I just saw her on an old Columbo, and I was like, oh, it was on the other day. I was like, this is a good portent. She was fabulous. Yes, so I play Ruth Gordon. I play Marilyn Monroe. I play Ethel Barrymore. I know. It's so fun. And Betty Comden. You mentioned Adolph Green. That you, yeah. I also play Judy's mother, and I play Judy's best friend and confidant, who was steady in her really the duration of her life. She met her at a young age, and she was right there with her until the end. And then various secretaries and ladies of the studio. I think that's about it. But I know there's like 9 parts in there, so yeah, they're keeping us busy. It's so fun because it's just. I like to think of the scenes. They move so quickly. I like to think of them as like little snapshots of her life, you know. And it just is like, you know, when you get a book of photos and just go. That's what the scenes feel like playing in them, and I think watching them in a great way. You know, Peter's great about pacing. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yes. So.
Hey, I'm Jonathan. I, like my 2 cohorts here, play 1,000 different parts. I play Harry Cohn, who was the studio executive for Columbia Pictures. I play Daryl Zanuck, who was the studio executive for MGM, another studio exec. I play Judy Holliday's father, Abe, who was sort of not the nicest guy, but a really important part of what she became. I play Garson Kanin, who, of course, was not only a brilliant mind, but also the author of Born Yesterday, which is the play that sort of shot Judy to fame. I play Bernie Layton, who was a jazz pianist, and in our story, a studio musician who was her musical director and sort of confidant as well. And then there's some other scattered folks that pop up too. The scenes are very cinematic. You don't really sit in any of them for too long, so you get quick snapshots of a lot of different people that influenced her life, and we're doing our best to fill those snapshots as best we can over what are essentially 2, 3, 5-minute scenes.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what surprised you the most about Judy Holliday?
I had no idea. I entered this process knowing very little about her, if I'm completely honest. My first impression was kind of what I think most people's are, the dumb blonde caricature. And the fact that she had an IQ of 172 and in so many ways was a feminist ahead of her time was news to me. So that was the big surprise for me.
And for me, I would say in just doing research prior to, she had a rather small ego for such a huge star. She was very generous of spirit when she was working with people. And I just think that's rare, you know, in any day and age, to a star of that magnitude to be so generously spirited. So that was surprising to me.
Well, I agree with everything they just said. I was aware of her, and I actually knew that she was very smart, and I knew she had gone up before the House Un-Americans Activity Committee. So there are, like Jonathan was saying, a lot of things about her life that resonate today, because early on she was standing up to men who had all the control in a very strong, intelligent, and articulate way. I guess the thing that surprised me about this piece then is the way she just gave to the people in her life. You know, how she took care of them and just threw herself into the relationship, whatever it was, and gave what she had. Really quite a beautiful spirit. So that was a discovery for me. You know,
She died so young and so tragic.
incredibly young. You know, it's hard not to think about what could have been, but you know.
Thank you very much. And this is gonna be good. And everyone finally learned about Judy Holliday.
Yeah.
We hope so.
Yeah, you don't know if the younger generation knows that much about her, so I hope.
And everyone knows Marilyn Monroe, but Judy Holliday, they don't.
That's right, exactly. And hopefully, I think that older people that do remember her will really enjoy this, a walk down memory lane, and I'm sure they'll come away learning a lot. And yeah, hope she gets some new fans.
Me too. Thank you.
Willy Holtzman,
And you wrote,
Smart Blonde.
among other things. What else have? And you've written a lot of stuff.
Yes, for theater I've written Sabina and the Marini Strad was done a few years ago at Primary Stages, and Bobber Boys. So yeah, I've been around a little bit.
So what about Judy Holliday just made you want to write about her?
I actually, when I was a mere lad, I wrote a biography of her, and I think that was the bit of writing that made me want to become a playwright, because I really wanted to investigate her life dramatically in ways you really can't or you're not supposed to in a literary work. So it took me a few years to get to it, but I'm glad I did.
What is it about Judy Holliday that made you want to write a biography about her in the first place?
I have a lot of strong women in my life, and I owe a lot to them. And I was struck, of course, by her talent, but by her strength in dealing with the challenges that came her way. And I think that she's known mostly for performances and Born Yesterday, but there's just so much more to her, starting with her genius IQ and going from there. So it's her heroic struggle in reconciling the parts of her life.
And her movies were sort of subversive. I love that Gladys Glover one.
Oh, yes.
You know, just putting her name on a billboard, and it makes you it's like so Kim Kardashian.
Absolutely. And that's, you hit on something perfect about Judy. You asked why I was intrigued with her. She fought all the fights that women are fighting today. If you went down a Me Too checklist, unfortunately, she experienced all that, and she did it with dignity and courage and tenacity, and I just admire the hell out of her.
Yeah, her parents instilled some great values in her.
I think so. Well, it was a difficult family for her to grow up in. The parents divorced. Her father left her mother early on, and she was raised in part by these aunts and uncles who had no children of their own. So she was had a lot of expectations placed on her, and she was a very dutiful daughter and niece. So it was an unusual upbringing, I think.
What do you want us to take away from this after we've seen it?
I think it's so important to honor the pioneers, that people have fought the battles early on and have had the triumphs too. So I think that's a huge takeaway for Judy. And her life was sadly cut short, and I think that it's just taking her memory with us is a great gift to her, because she gave many gifts to us.
And it shows that, she never let anything get her down. She was like one of those clowns that you punch but comes back again.
She had tremendous resilience, but she also had great heart and great passion, and the blacklisting and the sexual harassment in the studios really wounded her, and so she always recovered from those wounds, but she had as I say, quite a few obstacles thrown her way, but she always managed to overcome them.
Thank you very much. I can't wait to see this, because I love Judy Holliday.
She's the best, right?